This is Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert, and I'm Meredith. Around here, we explore taboo questions and societal blind spots. Each high contrast guest gives you the layered deep dive you crave, not just the Google results making headlines. My mission, and yours if you choose to accept it, is to inspire curiosity by exploring the nuance and paradox of our world. Each episode is different, so bring your ADD and your earbuds and have a look around. Many have a doomsday vision of the future of our world with AI in it, and at times, I'm included in that. So when I heard Nichol on another podcast mention that she feels AI could make us more human, I was, as you may have guessed, curious. We not only discussed theoretical scenarios of human betterment due to AI, but she also shared practical AI tools that are available now that could make the internet safer and more supportive for your kids. You'll also hear what your personal AI agent might be like. That one to me was especially interesting. How AI could make a huge dent in mental health dilemmas and how it could improve our work experiences. And I want to let you know, if you're a repeat curiositor, I want you to consider this your official invite to my private Facebook group. In there, I post content that I don't share anywhere else. I invite you to shape future episodes like this one, and I do occasional giveaways. You can search MFR Curious Insiders on Facebook or click the link in the show notes. I hope to see you in there. And if you end up liking this episode, you'll also like the one I did with futurist Rose Eveleth, exploring the ethics and impacts of future technology like smart cities, artificial intelligence, and data privacy. That's episode 168. All right, friends, keep it curious. Anyone who has ever tried to sell anything on Facebook Marketplace is familiar with the frustrating combination of people plus internet. It makes it hard to believe that adding something like AI into the mix could actually make us better humans. My next guest is the chairman and co-founder of the Transformative Tech Lab, where she specializes as a futurist focusing on human-centered adoption. Today, she's going to help us integrate our human nature and technological advancement as we ask the question, could AI make us more human? Thoughtful innovator and human-centered futurist, Nichol Bradford. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I am so excited to dig into this conversation because admittedly, this podcast has really allowed me to explore and expand my Luddite self because I think I've been so naturally resistant to these things. So my first question is actually an invitation to help me with the part of this that I have the most hard time with it, because when I imagine more technology, even especially AI, I think about the things that we're witnessing, like cyberbullying and increased depression and anxiety amongst young people, and radicalized incels making deep fake porn and it ruining people's lives. So the whole improved emotional self-regulation piece is kind of a hard sell for me. Can you help me with that part first?
Yes, I think the place to start is on the question of how technology and specifically AI can actually help us be more human. A big part of it is the insight that it can give us into ourselves. And so to answer the question, I need to go back a little bit. My belief is that we need to put the human back in AI and tech and insist that it help us heal, grow, and thrive. I think that it's not a matter necessarily of the tech being bad, and there's certainly a lot of bad tech out there, but I think a lot of it is that it's not good enough, and we have to design it better. And so I think a lot of the things that you're describing are also the result of poorly designed technology with thin, difficult interfaces like these phones. A screen is a terrible interface. And the fact that we spend a lot of time staring at screens, that's not human-centered. And so when you look at technologies that are designed to be human-centered, they affect us in different ways. And what I've researched over the last 10 years has been, what are the ways that human beings can heal, grow, and thrive, and how technologies can support that. That always required personalization. And what technology allows is it allows things to be accessible, affordable, and available. And so when I say that technology can help us be more human, it doesn't mean that we let go of the human things. It doesn't mean that there aren't humans in the loop. It doesn't mean that we aren't using technology to allow us to be better while we're together. It's not an either or, it's an and. And so the level of personalization for therapies that this technology allows is extraordinary. So in terms of mental, emotional, and social health outcomes for things that are designed for that and also designed to be responsible and ethical and in permission, I've never been more excited. And so I know that's a little abstract, but that is the overall. And I'll just give you a couple of examples so everybody knows it's real.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Certainly, you've heard, and I'm sure people in your audience have heard, how long people have to wait to see a therapist.
Right.
Well, one of the things that many people don't know is if someone sees a therapist and it doesn't go well, they around 80% of the time become a rejecter of therapy and they never go back. So a really great use of technology would be therapist matching so that the first session actually goes well. So you don't get a therapist who reminds you exactly of your mother. That's a bad thing.
It could not be good. Yeah.
It's not going to be good. So another thing that therapists will tell you and psychiatrists will tell you is they spend the first 4 sessions developing what's called a narrative profile. There has been some really interesting studies out of Tyler Vanderweel's lab at UPenn on using basically 24 hours of stream of consciousness, audio files of a patient. So basically, like every hour, you just talk for a few minutes about what you're thinking about. And just those 24 to 48 hours of clips, the utility in those studies for both the therapist and the patient for feeling like that those extrapolated stream of consciousness sped up the development of the narrative profile that the therapist or the psychiatrist uses then to poke and understand how they can best help you. So imagine instead of that taking 4 sessions, you do it before you get there.
Yeah.
Then another thing that happens that many people don't know is that when someone's seeing a psychiatrist, if you are someone who is in need of an SSRI, there's many, but all of them don't work for everyone. And if you get the wrong one, which the therapist or the psychiatrist for prescribers, which they're basing on, they've just met you. It takes them 4 weeks typically to get a narrative profile of you, to get an understanding of your life, and then they prescribe the drug. If they don't get the right one, it typically takes 14 months to get to the right one. That's 14 months of suffering. Now, one of the things that technology can do, and I also have a company that I invested in that's working on this, but to be able to take your 24/7 lifetime data, you're wearing wearables, and remember, this isn't invasive, this isn't Big Brother. These are people who are suffering, who no longer want to suffer. And so to be able to combine biodata, there's some genetic testing that will say what drugs you might be suitable for. So there's, variety of things that are enabled and empowered by technology, especially for people who are suffering. We have an overtaxed healthcare system. Mental health funding just disappeared on the state level. I mean, it's like that just happened earlier this week. It's gone on the state level. Oh, it's actually makes me a little cry. It's gone. Mm. So we better get comfortable using technology as much as possible, because we're going to have to figure out how to fill in these gaps.
I love the idea of AI supporting more effective interventions. That totally clicks for me. I think what I need additional help with, I need a lot of help, Nichol.
I'm here for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Is the preventative side, because I was thinking, okay, I'm picturing, like I talked with Dr. Niobe Way about the psychology of little boys and like how friendship and loneliness affect the quality of life, but also their propensity towards violence against themselves and others. And so we have these like angry little kids who really have an internal incentive to escape, right? And so when AI is in the form of entertainment or as company, right? Like Gemini came with my husband's phone and he can have whole conversations with Gemini now. So we have that for these developing brains for young people who have not only a not fully developed brain, but they don't have at this moment any skills or knowledge or guidance or protocols of how to use this technology. So, how do you think in the near future, technology, especially AI, can help us prevent this increasingly downward slope that happens on the onset of puberty and even just before with child loneliness and depression and cyberbullying? How can it help support the thing that as humans we are probably biologically set up to do, connect and be outside and, all those things that support our natural homeostasis?
It's even a bigger problem than that. On your brain, there's a thin sheath. And this is very I'm really simplifying. For all the neuroscientists out there, I know I'm simplifying it. But there's a thin sheath that plays a role in impulse control. And it's not fully in place until you're in your early 20s. So it's not,
which is a real shame.
so it's like, but meditation actually helps because it helps with synchronization across the brain. So teaching a child to meditate is one of the best things you can do to help them with their impulse control until their brain is mature in their early 20s. A lot of it is that there's things that we take for granted and we don't understand the seriousness of it. So, there's an area called digital well-being. I call it syncing, SYNC. And what that means is that we don't actually know how to sync our online and offline lives in a healthy way. And we don't really have a lot of research to support what is the healthy side. Like we know what is unhealthy. Homes with Alexa where they don't say please and thank you to Alexa. They stop saying please and thank you to each other. There's some research that shows that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So we haven't really defined like what really is healthy. We're all figuring it out as we're going along. And so I'm a big advocate that we need to take this very seriously and understand it. Because one of the other things that's coming is, like I said earlier, screens suck. Voice is a better interface. I've recently started voice emailing. I will never go back.
Really?
It's just so much better. And so, with the proliferation of agents, and this will get back to something that can be helpful for us, but with the proliferation of agents, I would say that probably by the end of next year, you're going to see many, many more, and also the progress in AI voice. Probably by the end of 2026, many of your interfaces will be voice interfaces because it's just easier. And it's like a superior interface, and it's easier for us. So, for example, there was a pin company that recently was sold to another company, and they didn't quite have the success that they hoped for. But what they saw in their research, and it was sort of like a voice AI that was just sort of always with you, the people who took to it the fastest were people over 70 and people under 7. But the challenge is that humans are mimics. And, it's the reason why a friend can go to the UK and come back with an accent, but they'd be a good person and not a pretentious person. And you're like, whoa, the accent. It's because we mimic. And so once all of this switches to voice, which a big chunk of it will, because we should only use screens for things that you need to see. And I think everything else should be voice so that we can look around the world. I think that will be better for us. But also, where we really need to understand the implications is that we're mimics. We will start mimicking these voice agents who will then be training on us, pretending to be them. And it becomes like a tight little circle. But we can design things to be expansive. So a good example would be Kamigo in Khan Academy. And what Kamigo does is it doesn't give the child the answer. They develop the Socratic method. And so it asks questions. It never does not give them the answer. It takes them on a journey. And when you look at their results, like one of the gold standards of results is like whether or not like the improvement that children get with a tutor. So there was recently a case in Nigeria where you might have seen these headlines about mid-year last year, but it's like they introduced one of these types of education agents to, a classroom in Nigeria or school in Nigeria with both boys and girls. And the kids jumped into like college level abilities in like a very short period of time. It made news all over the world. And where there had previously been a difference between the performance of girls and boys, that just went away. And so when we design technology to be expansive, where it sort of like has these things that keep us from going into neural atrophy, it can be very expansive. So people are figuring that out in education, but that could be everywhere. So that's kind of, one example. But to jump to like specifically how we can do prevention, there was a company that I judged a competition. It's called Chat License. And what their ambition is they were like, you have to have a driver's license to drive. Why don't you have to have a license to be on the internet? So it's basically a class that they take with their parents, and it's the only app on their phone. Oh. And it's not until they finish, then they get their license. And it's really educated them about grooming, like all the stuff. And their parents are there with them. And so together they learn how to use the internet.
That is so interesting because when I think about, I love that, first of all. I'm sure as a judge on that panel, you were excited too. But my first thought is there are so many parents who just aren't prepared to have those conversations with their kid because you said grooming, right? So because part of the dangers of the internet are quite dark, like cyberbullying generally sounds like something we could explain at an age appropriate level. But how do you explain being sexually trafficked virtually to, some kids as early as 6 are getting phones, 7, right? And so I kind of wonder if that will be either a point of resistance for many or an opportunity for growth for families, growth and intentionality. Intentionality meaning like, all right, let's think about how old we want our kid to be before they have a chance to mess around with a phone themselves and have access to any version of the internet. And maybe growth in the area of like, I didn't expect to have to talk to my kid about human trafficking as soon, but here we are. We're going to grow through this. But then obviously the resistance side would be that parents would simply decide that that is not something they're going to talk to their kids about at all. And therefore, they wouldn't have a phone at all because they're just not ready. And, this is all assuming that this sort of program would be integrated into the mainstream and every phone for every child.
Yeah. If a child doesn't understand how to use technology, they're at a distinct disadvantage. And if a child doesn't understand how to be human in this world, they're at a distinct disadvantage. I mean, the main thing is that we can't either or. It's really both. And so we have to be very proactive in understanding and leaning into how do we create the beneficial norms that allow us to sync in a healthy way so that we have digital well-being and so that children are also not left behind. And what I love about the way they've designed this product is it's mutually educational. So then a parent isn't at a loss about like, oh, how do I talk about this? How do I talk about that? It actually shows them how to talk about it, and they go through it together. And the kids know like, oh, when I finish this, then I can, maybe get another app. And so it becomes like I've got my license type thing. So we need to make that a societal norm. The other thing that's going to happen for all of us and that we need to have happen is that ultimately, we are all going to have an agent that represents us. And it will be your guard. It will be your block. It will negotiate contracts on your behalf based on the criteria that you've set.
So by agent, are you talking like this is where
an AI agent?
Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
like Like a
Okay.
robot, like a physical droid, or like just
No,
like a
you'll have
program?
you will purchase an agent, an AI agent, and you will give that AI agent parameters of what ads you want to see. Actually, like the entire ad business, like the people who are pressing in that understand that they don't have that much longer to advertise to people because, you will naturally, like it will obviously make sense to you to have an agent intercept any ads except from brands that you have decided that you want to see ads from. So the whole like get in front of people this many times and get them to take an action, like that's going to be toast. Brands will have to speak to your agent and figure out how to get past your agent to get to you. It's going to change a lot. So you'll have an AI agent. We don't know all the micro decisions that they make or evaluations that they do. So we need a ton of research there. But you'll have an agent that is intercepting the world, and this could be good or bad, based on your parameters. What it does mean is that you'll be able to, like as a parent, when you decide to give your child an agent, I think it will be a little bit different than a phone because you'll be able to say, these are the things. You'll be able to set the parameters for what your child can see or not see. So you'll be able to decide what that is. And so when your child is on the internet and, let's just say someone's trying to groom them, your child's agent will be like, oh, hell no.
And I would want my agent to talk
shutting
like
this
that.
down.
Yeah, I would want my agent to be
so much fun.
like the aggressive auntie, like that would be the perfect agent voice in my mind if I had a child.
Yeah, totally. Oh, hell no.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah, and so we'll get to that. I mean, where it becomes problematic is that people of means will have agents that they buy in entirety, and that agent represents them. And you know where its loyalties lie. You are its priority. It is always on your side. It is always on your team. And people who don't have means, unless we as a society do something different about it, people who don't have means will have Jeff Bezos' agent, who also wants to sell you toilet paper. Or they might have Mark Zuckerberg's agent, who also wants to sell you something. And so I think one of the things as a society that we should do is we should want every human being who has an agent to have the most powerful, independent agent possible that is committed to them. And that agent will help you learn. That agent will, be your protector. There's a bunch of things. And so, and you can imagine from a sci-fi standpoint, that could go a lot of different ways.
I mean, I watched Her, so yeah, I could totally, it doesn't take much imagination for me having watched that movie to see how that could go lots of different ways.
It could go lots of different ways.
Hey, Curiositors, just a quick pause to show gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. From time to time, I recommend other podcasts you might like, and here's one I know that you're going to love. It's the Jordan Harbinger Show. I love it because it's smart without being too highbrow and 1,000% ADD friendly. I know, you love it already. I'm a genuine true fan. When I have time to listen to podcasts just for pleasure, not, guest research, the Jordan Harbinger Show is my automatic choice. It's like when you're hungry and someone asks you what you want, and then before you even have a minute to think about it, you find yourself at Chick-fil-A because, obviously, Jordan's the Chick-fil-A of podcasts. Some of my favorites include the one with the man held hostage by Somali pirates, that's episode 115, and the pain psychologist about how pain lives in the brain, not in the body, episode 661. You can't go wrong with adding the Jordan Harbinger Show to your rotation. It's incredibly interesting and there's never a dull show. Search for the Jordan Harbinger Show, that's HARB as in boy, I, N as in Nancy, GER, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. The Florida Panhandle isn't just the home of your favorite podcaster. That's me, by the way. Shameless, I know. but it's also a go-to spot for a lot of families on vacation. Don't plan a Pensacola trip without getting tickets to the UWF Historic Trust. It's good for a whole week, and it's a great indoor activity option. You'll recognize Trader John's where I record the show in the Pensacola Museum of History. Get your tickets in person so you can show the agent one of my emails and get $2 off an adult ticket. historicpensacola.org. Now back to the show. Remember to stay till the end where I give you a sneak peek of next week's episode. So for this instant, having an agent, there was some headline that came across my path not too long ago about quantum computing and computers supporting the multi-world theory because they were gathering information from other versions of the universe. So in this idea of having an agent, would that be a possibility? Like, oh, little Susie, there's a version of you that, is really great at golf. Or I don't know, whatever the example is. That's not a particularly impactful example that I just gave, but it does illustrate my point is that the level of information and insight that we're talking about?
Well, I mean, that remains to be seen. I quite like the multiverse theories, but, we're sort of not there yet. I think, one thing specific that we could know about quantum computing today is that on today's computers, a mouse brain would fill an entire room to actually make a copy of it. Being able to have a complete connectome, a complete copy of a human brain today would fill a building. And it's going to take a very long time. We're not there yet.
Okay.
Right now, we've just done fruit flies, and that's like your whole computer.
At least there's not mosquitoes. That would be really disappointing if we were making more mosquitoes. I want to go back to something you said just a minute ago when you were talking about children and the AI models that are not giving kids the answers, right? Because we've all heard about kids cheating on their tests with AI. I've seen a couple of videos where the kid yells, "Hey, Alexa, what's," and it's a math problem. And then the kid can write the answer. So instead, the idea of leading the kid through the Socratic method is really, really cool because it, as you said, prevents mental atrophy. I've heard it called digital dementia, which I think is very catchy. Wouldn't an agent increase adult mental atrophy or digital dementia? Because what I'm seeing right now of, kind of decreasing our human potential is the convenience of Google Maps, for example. I love some Google Maps, not only because my sense of direction is really not great, but I don't have a robust internal clock either. So when I'm getting ready to leave the house for an appointment that I should be on time for, I will turn on Google Maps so that I can see what traffic is and how long it'll take me to get there. And it's kind of helps me, leave on time. So there's all these, it's a great tool. I love it. But my sense of direction has gotten worse.
Let me ask you a couple of things.
Yeah, do.
So your sense of direction has gotten worse. But one of the things that other mammals on this planet can do that you cannot is they can feel the magnetic pulse of the planet. That's actually how birds migrate. Do you want to use Google Maps? Or if you could actually feel the magnetic pulse of the planet, would you take that one instead?
I would be excited to enter the restroom at the mall and not exit the restroom of the mall and go the wrong direction. I would settle for that, Nichol.
Well, it's one of those things. So you walked into your studio this morning and you turned on the light. That whole process of there actually being electricity there. In early human times, that was a whole process to get energy to the home. When you turn on the light, do you think, oh gosh, I really wish that I had chopped wood for this and I've forgotten how to chop wood for this? You don't.
True. Yeah.
So it's sort of like if you knew that using the Socratic method with your agent 30% of the time protected you from neuroatrophy, you would set your parameters. 30% of the time we have to do the Socratic method. We have to research things. That's why science is so important, especially around this digital well-being. We have to know what's good for us. And it needs to be based on more than just our guesses. It's funny in all of these remote work battles, there have been some studies that sort of show that in a team that has to work together and do certain types of thinking, where you're doing storming, norming, like you're doing iterative thinking, which you don't do it all the time in all of your tasks. But for a team that you need to do iterative thinking with and creativity, being in one another's presence 3 out of the 5 days is good. Like that helps with that emergent thinking. But if you're not in an emergent, period of your workflow, you don't need it as much. But right now we have people saying, no, in the office. And we have another group of people saying, oh, he's in the office. Both are wrong. It's a mix depending on the task. And now we're getting research that tells us what it is. So we need the same thing for our digital well-being. We need to know what is the right thing. So if you had a good prescription that it's this is probably in the range for most people, or actually this level of personalization that's coming, your agent would be able to say, oh, Meredith, you're relying too much on this. I'm noticing neural pruning of your brain circuits. There's a little neural pruning that's happening. We need to up your Socratic method to 50%. So where we are is we're in a place where the tech is not good enough and we're not leaning into the reality that we're in. Because the reality is that tech is not going away. So for all the parents out there who are oh, I want to delay, you can delay. However, the 2 most important skills in the age of AI is adaptability and ideation. And a friend of mine was in a meeting and someone prototyped the thing that they were talking about while they were in the meeting. That used to be an 8 to 10 week process to get that back in front of a senior executive. And they just workshopped. So they switched from ideation to workshopping. So, as a parent, how do you teach your children to use the technology in that way and teach them now? Because it's you mentioned a little bit about education a little while ago. K through 12 is dead at this point. We had an education process where we used things that we made people do to evaluate them. So the essay is gone. If you didn't see it, you don't know that it happened. I had another friend who was in an interview and realized that the person, because they were pausing, that the person was actually having an AI listen to the interview and repeating, getting the answers, the perfect answer in the meeting.
Oh my
and
goodness.
that's with current, those pauses are going to go away too. So if you weren't there, if you didn't see it happen, you're not going to know that it happened. So also society-wise, that's going to make us move towards, and you can already see it in big studies, move towards wanting to be together, because then it happened. In person, it happened.
Okay.
So right now in work, task, anyone who says what the new jobs are does not know what they're talking about. For a little while ago, people were oh, it's prompt engineering. Well, now there's vibe coding, which is you speak software into being. You're not even typing it out and prompting. You're speaking it. You're saying what you want. You're just talking. And the software is making itself in front of you. So being able to do that, but also to become the kind of people who can ideate in real time, make the most of the moment, to take us back to the top of the interview. If you're a parent out there and you're listening to this, you have to teach your children how to make the most of the moment when they're there in person. They need to be able to ideate. They need to be able to adapt. They need to be able to be flexible, because the task, no one knows what they're going to be. The next level of thing that's happening in HR is they call it skills-based. Well, we actually don't even know what the skills are going to be, because, just this last week, there was progress on AIs used to be really good at the past, but now they're starting to show some interesting, it's just glimmers, but being able to do novel things, which we were that's our area. So we don't even know what the skills are going to be. But what will be consistent is what are the traits? Curiosity, agency, willingness to problem solve, regardless of what your tools are. And then circling back, I think, after all the years I spent in gaming, I actually think the best environments are going to be game environments, because, most people, when they think of games, they only think of Marvel and Call of Duty. There's actually so many games. There's a game called Civilization that's so good. It's used in economics classes to allow people to actually like see the actions over 80 years of economic decisions they make today. There's some Civilization instances that have been running for 30 years. It's fascinating.
So that's like in engineering, in like civil engineering, they run 100-year flood models to see like, okay, if we set up our roadway design like X and there is a 100-year flood, this is what will happen to the surrounding areas. So you're saying that there are games in which you can do that, but on a social level, and understanding the social implications of 7 generations after us will make us better humans in this moment.
Well, that's one thing, but also in a game environments are actually great for teaching iteration, problem solving, teamwork, curiosity, or how to be iteratively curious about something. There's a big trend of people wanting to gamify education. That's basically, when you take something terrible and add some sugar to it and hope that it goes down better. As a game person, every time I hear that gamification, I'm like,
Yeah.
'cause most people don't understand that games are, curiosity, exploration, narrative, and community. That's what a game is. That's why Tag is an awesome game for kids. And that's also what made World of Warcraft work. And so I think where we're going, or where we should go, is using game environments to allow children and people to get a lot of time expressing traits as they are, so they can build the muscle in the traits of exploration. There was a game a few years ago that you started in a cell on a spaceship and you just sort of woke up in it and you had to figure out how to get out. And the permutations were it was really like a digital escape room. And the permutations were so extensive that people couldn't publish on the internet what the things were, because my sequence would be different than yours. And it took people hours to get out of this room. It took experienced gamers hours to get out of this room. That is a expression of iteration and grit. So we need to rethink how we're doing everything, especially now that all the fundings for everything is gone. So we're going to need to lean into technology to be able to do these things. But the principles for me always include that a human should be in the loop. A human should be a part of the process, and that technology should really be used to give humans superpowers and to help people help more people. That's how we should design it. So for anyone listening, don't be misled by this current generation of technology. Demand that it does what you want it to do, because it has the potential to do extraordinary things, but we have to demand it.
So I think you're selling me on the benefits and the connection between being really better human, a better person, and the potential there with technology. When you said earlier that the guy was doing the interview and he was using AI to help him give like the ideal answers during that process, and how that will inspire people to be face to face in real life, because then it will create a reality that they can authenticate. They will know like, okay, that was real. That made me think of this. I'll loosely call them a resistance group. Maybe you've heard of them. It's out of University of in Philadelphia, and they call themselves a Luddite group. So they're college students that are resisting technology. And when they have flip phones and they get together and they just read books and do art and they advertise it as peace of mind. What are the chances that more young people will completely rebel against this, as young people naturally do, right? They naturally choose the opposite end of whatever the mainstream is. How common of a thing do you think that could be with young people, them going complete Luddite?
I think it's like reading The Fountainhead and you become an objectivist for 8 or 9 months. There's an impracticality to it, but I think there's also a genius to it as well. And so like all of us should be Luddites at different times during the week and our days, like all of us should do that. I think it's wonderful. The thing is that we have to be able to sync online plus offline. It isn't either or. It isn't ketchup or mustard. Like we need mustard and we need ketchup. And we have to figure out how to do that in a healthy way that is beneficial. And this is the intertidal. This is the period of time where we're figuring it out. So naturally, it's uncomfortable. We just became aware of just how dangerous the over online is, like really in the last decade. And so now we have to find the balance, and that is the way.
I love that. It sounds like what you're saying is that AI making us more human is an active, not a passive process. It's not popping a pill, it's not flipping a switch, but that we will have to learn the skill of AI. As we close, do you have any recommendations for people who are incentivized, excited, like they feel hopeful about what you've said and they want to build their own skills in this area?
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing you have to do is you really have to use the LLMs. You have to use it a lot because what you'll learn in doing that is what it can do and also what it can't.
The LLMs?
So the different AIs, so the Claudes and the Chat GPTs and those kinds of things, because knowing what it can do and knowing what it can't do is equally important. And understanding how your, unique perspective is what really makes it come to life. And so it allows people like just using it to solve a problem. So for anyone who isn't doing it yet, you need to spend 10 hours solving a problem that matters to you. If it doesn't matter to you, so like, Shakespeare haikus on your breakfast cereal is not doing it. It has to be a real problem that you have skin in the game on solving it. And you need to spend 10 hours really digging in on one of the services that are out there, actually even a few of them, to solve your problem. And when you do that, you'll understand what it can do for you.
Can you direct people to is there like a, Chat GPT for dummies? Because
no, it's just jump in.
Just jump in? Okay.
Spin it up and, and start solving, like ask it, here's my problem. How should I solve this with you?
Oh, I love that. That would make people a better question asker.
You need to spend 10 hours poking, leaning in, and really poking around on your problem, and that'll do it.
Thank you so much for all of this. This has been a really interesting conversation. I think people would be excited to stay in touch with your work and hear what you have going on in the future. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the next big thing I'm doing is I'm doing an event in San Francisco in June called Human Tech Week. And the thesis of that event is that humans should be at the center of AI and technology. A lot of tech conferences, it's all about infrastructure and a bunch of other things, but it's not about the patients, clients, students, people who are using it. And, the thesis of this conference is that AI should help us heal, grow, and thrive, and it should support human flourishing. And this is the first conference where builders, so founders, scientists, investors, strategists, corporates, artists, and philosophers are going to be together to create the future we want. What I say is like the magic pixies are not going to give us the future we want. If we want it, we have to build it. And one of the things for everyone listening to out there are no experts. There are no experts. It might as well be you. If there's something you want to build, it's never been easier for you to one, start a company, and two, use these tools to create what it is you want. You can create local software. You can create something that's good for your neighborhood. It doesn't have to be like some giant thing. And for the first time in history, you have the ability to do that. You have the ability to do that. So the future you want, you have to create it. And so anyone who's into that, come to my conference. It's humantechweek.com. You can check it out and see what's going on. But the world that's interested in creating one that's good for humans will be there.
Awesome. Thank you again. This was incredible. And I look forward to hearing about all the new things that you help us onboard in the near future.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, you'll also like the one I did with futurist Rose Eveleth, exploring the ethics and impact of future technology, like smart cities, artificial intelligence, and data privacy. That's episode 168. Stay tuned next week for a remastered favorite about happy brains, mastering ancient brains and modern emotions. Until then, keep it curious.